So, let's talk about Overwatch. Overwatch Retribution, the newest event. Retribution is an annual event, or is it called Archives now? I don't know, it was Uprising last year, but it's currently running from the 10th to the 30th of April, and when this video is uploaded, you'll probably have about a week more to play it. April's event gives players a bit of backstory to some of the characters and settings, and this year the event is all about Venice, a brand new map that's getting a payload variant sometime in the near future. In the event, 4 players are one of 4 Blackwatch agents, these sort of mercenary people who've been taking jobs following Overwatch's disbanding, and their goal is to capture an Italian businessman, but after... The 4 agents must now make their way out of Venice and be picked up via dropship. Players can choose between Reaper, Genji, Moira, or... and tear their way through town. Now, on its own, I'm not particularly fond of Overwatch. It's an alright game, but I don't really have the patience for the PvP stuff. I'd rather sink my teeth into a single player, or at the very least a PvE game. The only real exception anymore is TF2, but that's mostly because I've already sank, several hundred hours into it. So, here comes Retribution, and I'm actually really enjoying it. It's fun to blow through a crowd of weaker enemies, and not so weak that you're only one-shotting them like certain other PvE titles. There's just enough of them to be fun without being overwhelming. The special units take some cues from the other characters in the game, but with some bonus nods to classic PvE games as well. The sniper's got a grappling hook and a pistol, the heavy assault unit's got dual chain guns and a charge attack, and the cloaker, and the assassin who can cloak your I did it again. And the map is nice and big with plenty of cool moments. It takes about 15 minutes to play, but what a 15 minutes it is. I honestly love this game's PvE. And the 4 playable characters really help this greatly. Reaper can self-heal, letting him jump straight into the fray. Cowboy Curtis's insanely high accuracy lets him take out distant threats. Genji can slash straight through a crowd or reflect a hail of bullets into a particularly troublesome enemy. And Moira is there to heal. In all honesty, it's neat that we actually had a team of 4 Blackwatch characters that all work together well as a team of 4. It feels really good to smash your way through Venice as these 4 guys, and it feels good that they found 4 characters that make a good team and make sense lore-wise to be together. That's clever. And all this is complemented with some new mechanics. There's only a couple moments that the players need to interact with the environment. They're mostly like to place the breaching charge, but it seems to be setting up for some more proper map interactions, not unlike Payday. I'm really curious as to see where this goes in the future. Reviving a player can be done by any teammate, requires just sticking close to him while also still being able to defend yourself, and your gun slooping off screen to pick up a discarded ninja off the ground, and the music cues and lighting capture the mood perfectly. It's tense, but it's a still night outside. Maybe I'm reading the map wrong, but it almost seems like it's getting a little brighter as you progress through the map, almost like it's becoming the break of dawn. It looks amazing. Now, you got 4 characters at it, and that's all fine and good, and it's nice, but consider this. They've let every character play this. There's a special variant to this mode that lets you play as any character at all. Take your pick. There's like 30 of these rapscallions, and they're all fully voiced. Everyone from Diva to Doomfist can call out special unit kills and objective reminders, and it feels really nice that they're not just resorting to cobbling together something or using some generic lines. But what this mode really showcases is the broad diversity of Overwatch's roster, and how each one is a really well thought out place, not only for the competitive modes, but for PvE. Some characters can take out crowds of close-by enemies, some are better at single target elimination, some are just great damage grinders, but in Retribution, there really are no poor choices of characters. Unlike in the rest of the game, the PvP stuff, where each character is a direct counter and there's some poor choices to be made. For instance, if an enemy team has an area locked down from a distance, a melee-centric character is going to have a hard time punching through, or if they've got a lot of healers, a character that does a lot of scratch damage won't really solve your problem, etc. But in the PvE settings, all characters have a clear and distinct role, and provided you're running a balanced team of a close-range damage dealer, a crowd-clearing DPS, a healer, and the wild card, TM, everyone has a role and it's clear who'd be best at what, and each character can play at least one of the roles well, or maybe they've got an ability that lets them fill in for a second role or whatever. For instance, Brigitte, one of the newest characters, is a melee-oriented character armed with a flail and a shield. Playing as Brigitte, you really can't go up against enemies like snipers all that well, but you can protect yourself and draw fire towards yourself by using your shield. You don't take much damage doing that, and it's an easy way to keep the laser off of people who would be able to take out the sniper. And when there's packs of enemies around, I can more than easily swing the mace around and get a few kills out of it. Doomfist's playstyle heavily favors single target elimination through his rocket punch and uppercut, but he has the ability to play backup fighting crowds with his spike attack and his gun. So when a heavy shows up, I can charge at him with the force of a very angry truck and knock a huge chunk out of his health, or I can clean up a particularly troublesome assassin or cluster of enforcers. And in doing research for this video, I really couldn't find one character who was outright bad at Retribution, someone who just didn't have a playstyle for PvE, which is a game mode I don't think they built Overwatch for to begin with. Everyone at least seems mildly built to handle a wave of AI opponents, which either means a lot of foresight on their part, or really tightly designed characters. I'd argue that there really is no one character in Retribution that could be outright bad at it. The roles are very well built, and honestly, this is the work of a well-crafted PvE system. It's clear a lot of thought and foresight went into it from minute one, and I honestly have to praise Blizzard for their work here. The storytelling map design's a little bare, but that could easily change in the future. Venice will be a payload map in a future update, so maybe later down the road they'll start making maps specifically for the PvE stuff that don't become PvP maps. Who knows? But in relation to the game's PvP, where does this stand? Maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I like the co-op modes more than the team-based competitive stuff. Many of my favorite characters in the game aren't particularly well revered in competitive modes, and those that are situational at best. Let's take the character that got me paying $40 for this game, Mei. Mei's ability to freeze opponents to single out one guy and execute them makes her very useful on paper, but a slow movement speed and lack of a panic button really makes getting to your target next to impossible on most maps. Many other characters have a means to get out of a situation when things get hot, but all Mei can really do is tuck herself away for a moment and hope the enemies are gone. In PvE though, well, Mei plays a significant role in that freezing enemies works both as a way to fight a single target and a whole pack of bad guys at once. And Blizzard, the ultimate not the company, is a very effective way to defuse troublesome situations. Lucio's push ability has some situational use as a killing tool on some maps with well-defined edges near points of contention, but there really aren't that many all things considered, and a little bit of aid in giving you some breathing room when you need to reload or use an ability. But here on the Venice map, a lot of enemies come by boat, and it's easy to send a whole crew of mercenaries into the water with just one click. Junkrat's Bear Trap is mostly used to catch an enemy out in the open or to guarantee a mine hit. It's not terribly useful compared to the rest of his kit, but in Retribution it can be used to stop assassins, to score an easy kill, prevent heavies from tearing down your team. It just feels really satisfying to see all of these options that almost seem hand-placed by Blizzard to give underused characters and abilities new life in Retribution. Everyone seems totally viable, with many of their own unique key moments to really shine in, which contrasts very greatly to the PvP mode's various confounding variables. A lot of what makes this possible is that Retribution is based heavily around its systems, whereas the main game is heavily based around the player-to-player experience, which is incredibly subjective. When playing quick play, for instance, it's easy to be paired unevenly. Say I'm a good defense player and I join a team and there's already 2 defense characters but no healer. My usual picks are out of the window. Now I've got to figure out how to sling discs, eggs, or lemonade to help my team the best. Now let's just say the average level of the players on my team is 120. I'm level 81 at the time of writing this, and probably a little bit higher when this goes up, but say my team average is level 120. We've got some people who earned a couple stars. We've got a couple people who just started recently. Okay, now let's say the enemy team has 3 silver bordered players. They are at the very least level 701. And while they might not be stronger or necessarily better, they do have a lot more experience than me with Overwatch. I've got about 40 hours, and that means these people probably have about 400 hours, if not more. They know these maps inside and out, and if it's a new map, they have at least worked out how they approach, if not a top 5 or top 3 picks, they're probably at least really good at one character. Or they can play any role relatively easily. If their team needs a healer, they can jump right into a healer role. Or maybe even pick a character who can double as a healer, a character that can provide health for their team without playing a direct support role, and they can wear both those hats very well. Say these 3 players all jump into the team chat, or worse, they're friends. They're all pre-grouped. They came into this as a group of 3, already communicating with each other. They'll be able to communicate and coordinate. They can keep tabs on where my team is, on flanks, and evaluate as a team where the best plan of attack is. Now, these are a lot of hypotheticals, I'm well aware. We could flip the script and throw me in a team with a bunch of platinum-boarded people, or everyone's using voice chat, or whatever. But the point here is that the PvP modes are entirely based around how well I'm willing to commit to the game, how well others commit to the game, and how well people can convince others to commit to the game on a match-to-match basis. And I'll admit, I have better things to do with my time than force myself through hundreds of hours of quick play, or God help me competitive seasons, to learn the maps and characters. I've played 3 hours of comp, and that was 5 too many. Now, in the PvP side's defense, a lot of the game revolves around things constantly changing, and you can switch characters as needed to change tactics mid-match. You can't do that with Retribution. You're locked in. Makes sense. But let's consider for just a second what Overwatch is thematically. It's a whole organization working to come together to do something, whether they're stopping an EMP from destroying a city, escorting the Doomfist gauntlet to a museum, or maybe just claiming a temple from an enemy faction. With that in mind, why can 6 Overwatch vets fight 6 more Overwatch vets? Why can D.Va fight herself? Why can Overwatch work to remove an EMP to a settlement when that's something Talon, the game's terrorist faction, would do? Now, I get it. They didn't want to divide between the two teams. That's twice as many characters, and if they're not exactly the same, one of the teams is going to be better than the other. But with that in mind, the PvP segment of Overwatch is at odds with itself. The world needs heroes? Then why are these heroes fighting each other? Why are they acting against their organization's wishes? What do competitive seasons mean within the context of Overwatch's world? What about the Overwatch League? As a PvE game, Overwatch just makes a lot more sense to me. Let me play as an actual Overwatch agent, hire the Blackwatch guys or independent folks as unlockables or bonus characters, and make Talon the major antagonists, the boss fights on new missions. Let me, as an Overwatch member, work to better the world, push back against injustice, work together on large Payday-style missions where someone hacks a keypad while someone prepares the payload, and all 4 of us are fighting back against waves of enemies. There's a lot good here, but it's only available for 3 weeks out of the year, which is disappointing as hell. Maybe the biggest proponent, it seems, for the PvP gameplay is the money. Esports turns a killing if the game is well established, and Overwatch was well established from its first femtosecond. Not only that, but in a PvP game, you want to look nice, and to look nice in Overwatch, you're opening loot boxes, and loot boxes made Overwatch a billion-dollar property by the end of its first year. There's a whole discussion about loot boxes and how they shaped Overwatch's game design here. I've already kind of made a video out of it months ago, but I don't know, it's a bigger conversation than just like a 10-minute video. But again, what do the competitive circuits and esports leagues mean for Overwatch thematically? If this was all former Overwatch members needing major world corporations to hand them brand deals or sponsorship money in order to fund bringing Overwatch as a program back, and that's why they're competing with each other to secure as much of that sponsorship money as they can, that could be justification enough, but it's just not there in the game. Team Fortress 2 did this excellently. And I'm probably going to completely butcher these acronyms, Reliable Excavation and Demolition Team and the Builders League United are 2 massive conglomerates who each own half the world's major companies, and they're both owned by Manco, which acts as enough justification as to why they fight without getting into the logistics so hard that cooperation fails to keep disbelief suspended. Overwatch needs that, but it just doesn't have it. They're fighting just to fight, which in turn just makes the cooperative events just that much more compelling. And it just hurts. My final verdict is that thematically, Overwatch Archives' Retributionists makes a lot more sense than the PvP game stuff, but the business behind the game is why they opted for the gameplay they did. They won't get rid of all this. They want the money. I get it. But I really hope they decide to at least make Overwatch Archives a regular thing, more than just once a year. At least give us a couple of these to play year-round, and add to this, say, 2 or 3 times a year. They probably take a ton of time to make, I understand, but they're more important than 20 days out of the year. I think we can all agree on. Also, can I have that Mace skin now? If you like this video and you'd like to see more, I'd recommend subscribing. Patreon and social media links are in the description.